Hi, my name is Scott Simon. I'm going to do a short demo on music teaching. So this is my name. My instrument is guitar and computer. Guitar is my main instrument. And I have an MA in music from the Con in Adelaide. So, first let's just do a little bit of basics. So we'll look mainly at the treble clef because my instrument is the guitar, but of course we also have the bass clef if you use piano or the bass, of course. So, but at the moment we'll just stick to the treble clef. So with the treble clef, you draw it this way. There's various ways of using, of learning the guitar. You can learn the guitar using tabs, but I find it's much better to use notation for various reasons. We'll get into it in a second. So the drawing of the treble clef is just like this. Start at the bottom like that. So let's just look at the notes and how they relate to the guitar itself. So if we have like a little diagram here of the guitar, and we use this for the strings, this being the highest string E and this being the low E, so this is the thickest string. Then, if we, the first sort of note that we've learned on the guitar is this one here, which is our E. So our E is just basically the open string there in our guitar. So let's just, that's between those two diagrams we can pretty much get a handle on how you start to learn to play the instrument. So let's just take that out and kind of work out how to memorize or work out where each of the notes in the treble clef is. So to start with we have this. After you get to B, this convention says you do it that way. So actually this one as well. We've got this first note here, which is F, G, A, B, C, D, E. So for students to start with, we just learn between the gaps here, we have F, A, C, E, which spells face, of course, which is easy to remember. And on the strings, on the lines here, we have E, B, E, G, E, D, F, which, if we take it all together, gives us every good boy does fine, which is just a good way of memorizing it. So just knowing that that's between the gaps there, and then E, G, B, D, F is our every good boy does fine, which is a memory for the lines. So looking at this, if we have another staff down here, let's just put, and we just give someone a note there, say, then they can reference this, they can say, okay, E, G, B, and say, okay, that's a B note. So that's the way we basically start people with the treble clef, and from there, of course, they have to transpose it onto the instrument. So in tandem with that, you would have this diagram, which gives you the actual kind of neck of the guitar. So the B there would be open second string there. So if we have, say, F here, we have F would be represented here just by a dot like that to signify where the finger goes on the neck. And then we have G here, which is represented here on the 3rd fret. And once again, that's just where the finger goes on the actual neck, the thinnest string, 3rd fret. So that's kind of the basics of the treble clef and transposing it onto the guitar. So let's move on. Let's leave that there for a second. The next thing you need to learn is the rhythms of the actual notes. So let's just do a little melody of some kind. So here we've got no actual rhythm. I mean, these could be coloured in, they could be open. When they're coloured in, they're a quarter note. When they're open, not coloured, they're a half note. We'll get into that in a second. But the treble clef is divided into bars, of course. So the first two bars are represented here. So if we have a melody that goes like this. And then goes, say, that gives us a basic melody. So this melody is in quarter notes. So when you see a note which is coloured like that with a standard stem, it's a quarter note. So let's just put that here. And the stem can be up or down. So both upwards or downwards, it makes no difference in terms of what it actually represents. It's only convention that it goes downwards once it hits the B note there, and goes upwards from any lower notes there. So if we have a note down here, we would put an upward stem, but it makes no difference to the actual construction of the music, of the rhythms. Okay, so let's see. So we have two E's here, quarter notes E, E, F, G. So in terms of actually playing it, the rhythm is something often people work out in advance of actually trying to play the melody. So the rhythm would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see that this is in 4, 4, which is our timing signature, but we'll get onto that later. So yeah, very basic. That's as easy as it can get. The main thing is that there are 4 beats within each of those bars. So in this one there's quarter notes, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, each of them being a quarter of the bar, and hence the name quarter notes. But if we, for example, took this out and put a half note there, that would still give us 4 beats per bar. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would be dun, 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 dun. So you get that, that one would last longer, whereas if we've got the two there, still actually melodically the contour is exactly the same. It goes dun, 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 or if it's a half note, dun, dun, dun. So it still adds up to the exact same thing. And so we just count that 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, if that is a half note. Does that make sense? It's a bit messy, let's get rid of it. So turn that into a half note actually. Okay. So let's just put a little thing here. So we've got the quarter note as our first division. That's the note you learn probably at the very beginning. It's the most common note. And then if we have, say, one like this, that is our half note. And that goes for half a bar, as you would expect. From there we have, let's see, we have a whole note down here. And that is, goes for 4 beats, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we had a whole note here, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, rhythmically. Okay, so let's put this here. So this is our eighth note, and this is our 16th note. Yep. So eighth note divides this once again by 2. So if we have, say, let's get rid of that again, and let's put 2 eighth notes here. Actually, let's put 4 eighth notes there. So that would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you can see you need a different convention for counting once you use eighth notes. So it goes 1 and 2 and then these are worth that like that. So there's various tricks you can do to work out how to actually count each piece out before you play it and while you're playing it. If you don't know it that well, of course. Okay. Okay, so what else? Okay, so we've got that, that's a sort of basic melody. Let's take this out. We don't need that anymore. Get rid of that. So let's go now to the concept of a scale. The scale is used in relation to lots of the playing of music and also the understanding of music. So you use it to practice on the instrument to get your technical facility better and better, but you also use it in relation to what key you're in, for improvisation, for understanding the harmony of a piece, for composition. So it's like a fundamental in music. So the basic C scale is like this: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. As I said, it makes no difference that those stems are turned down there. They're still worth exactly the same as these stems here. So this is your basic C scale. We usually number these in terms of degrees: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then this is back to the first again. So that's a C again. So it's 7 notes, and that's just the convention of Western harmony. That's how things are done. That doesn't mean there aren't other conventions which can be used, and there are. But in terms of Western diatonic harmony, that's what we use. So as I said, this is what we sort of base the harmony and various things on. So let's, what should we do? Okay, so let's do this. Let's erase this for a moment. So if we take our little melody again, we can see a couple of things that can be added to it, which relate to the key of C. As I said, the key of C is a way of constructing chords that fit with melodies that are written in that key. So a chord isn't just a random conglomeration of notes which you then add to a melody. A chord has a relationship to the notes but also to the key. So to build each chord, we just say, we take the 1, the 3 and the 5 of the first one, which gives us C, E and G, which is our C triad, which is basically a C chord. And so the difference, as you can see, between a chord and a tone, or a chord and a note, is that a chord has all the notes played at the same time, whereas a note is just one by itself. So that's basically the difference between a melody and a chord progression. Two things which are part of every song. The melody is written with single notes. It can have harmonies, but it's basically written with single notes. And the chord progression is something which accompanies the melody, which is played with it, underneath it, alongside it, however you want to sort of couch it, but basically like that. So this is our C chord. If we go to the next one there, that's a D. And once again, we do exactly the same thing. We say D, F, and C become our next chord. F and C. That's right. Okay. And you know, if we were to use this, our little guitar thing here, we could see this F here, you play this, and then our A is there, that's our D, that's our A, that's another D, and that's an F. So that gives us a D minor chord. And you'll see this convention also used quite a bit to represent chords. Rather than just write them like that inside the music, people often just use a shorthand manner like this. So let's just do one of those. And once again, it's just a convenient way of showing where you put your fingers on the actual fretboard. And these X's and O's tell you which strings you need to play. So X's will tell you that you don't play those strings. So the E and A string are not played. The D string is played. Then you put one of your fingers on the A, the second fret there, press down, the D and then the F, and those notes together give you a D minor chord. So, of course, you can go through and build up out of the scale every chord that actually relates to that scale and some other chords as well, i.e. some chords which aren't usually used but which are more complex, jazz-oriented chords, etc. Jazz chords will usually have 4, 5, 6 or even more notes, whereas rock chords will usually only be triads or basic major and minor chords. So, excuse me. So the major and minor chords, as we just pointed out, so we've got a C major chord. It's actually a C major triad because it's got 3 notes, and here we've got a D minor chord. So the C major and D minor, basically those are the 2 most used chord modes. You will have D7, you have D major 7, D minor 7, D13, D9, many different flavors, but major and minor are the 2 basics that you need to learn from the very beginning. Almost every rock song can be played with just major and minor chords, though there might be some exceptions to that. Okay, so what is the difference between a major and minor chord? Well, if you look at the distances between the notes, C to E is actually a third. So a third being, it's a bit hard to do without a guitar, but C, D, E is 3 notes. So C, D, E. Whereas if you've got, from this one you go D, E, F. So D, E, F is actually only a minor third. It's not 3 whole tones. It's 2 tones and 1 semitone, whereas the C major is 3 tones. So that's the basic difference. You've got a major third in this one and a minor third in this one. So that's the difference in sound, even though they're both built from the degrees of the scale. But that takes a little bit more explanation. We won't go into that completely right now, but that goes into the notion that between C and D you have 2 semitones, and D and E you also have 2 semitones, but between E and F you only have 1 semitone. So 2 semitones, 2 semitones, 1 semitone. So the scale pattern, even though it's the same across every key, and it has that pattern built into it, a certain amount of tones and semitones for each scale step. Okay, so let's leave that for the moment. Let's see. Let's drop this out. So one of the first things that we have to do, I guess, is just to work out the sort of the language of music. So some of the components that we've talked about might need introduction to some people. So we would probably give a quick sort of rundown of some of the important words. So we had melody, chord, what else? Key, scale. This is the fretboard in terms of guitar. We'll just leave that aside for the moment. Major, minor. What else? Okay, chord progression. Some more kind of slightly harder ones, triad and dyad. Dyad is a kind of partial chord, only 2 notes. So if we just have say an E, an F and an A, it's still not a complete chord. A complete chord is only 3 notes or more. So when we say chord, we don't usually mean something with 2 notes. But yeah, if we go through those, melody is what we explained just before, the single note structure that goes through and gives us the tune in a piece. Chord is the triads or the bigger chords, the major and the minor, which actually allow us to sort of give the progression which the melody sits upon. The key is, we've only looked at the key of C, which is the beginning key. So there's many keys, and keys all relate sort of in a one-to-one relationship to each other in terms of their patterns, but their actual sound in relation to each other is scaled up or scaled down. So you have the C, the key of C, which has no flats and no sharps. We haven't even gone into flats and sharps yet. But then if we say the key of G, we have this little signifier there, which is a sharp note, which basically means every melody in the key of G will usually have that sharpened note. So you don't have to go through and change that. It's actually kind of built in through that sharp. So basically, the key of the scale of G will look like the scale of C, except that it'll start on G down there, and it'll go through. And when you get to that F will be sharpened by the fact that it's in the key of G, and so you don't have to actually register it in the staff. You can actually know that that's the case. When you come to play it on the guitar, it's a pattern. It's just a pattern that you will kind of learn, but it's good to know the relationship between the pattern and the actual connection to the notes on the staff. So is that, should we keep going? Okay, thanks very much.